Careful.
Thanks for pointing out. Hi, welcome, guys, to another episode of the Good Place podcast. Most people might be shocked now because the last time they saw me, I was wearing a winter coat and now I'm in shorts. Today, or this week, I'm in Tenerife. And I'm joined here by Cleo on a beautiful bench in Tenerife. Welcome to the show.
Well, welcome to Tenerife, Robin. And you can tell that I'm a resident because I am wearing jeans and a denim jacket because to me it's still cold.
Exactly. It's like, when we have Spanish or Italians in the Netherlands, when we take off the coats, they're still wearing hats.
Yeah. I'm the same. Every time I go back to Dublin in the summer, I'm thinking, okay, I'll bring my winter clothes because Irish summer is Canarian winter. I've been here for 25 years, so my blood is now pretty much Canarian.
Well, I think I would love to be in your shoes after 25 years.
There are pluses and cons. The Canary Islands is a great place to live. The weather, obviously. I mean, right. even just sitting here where there was a huge storm yesterday, the islands were shut down, and today there isn't a cloud in the sky, glorious sunshine, and I'm sure the beaches are full. There are minuses. I miss theatre, I miss cinema, I miss the kind of political debate that maybe I can have in other countries. But now that I speak Spanish, I'm a political animal in lots of ways. But now that I speak Spanish, I can have that. And in fact, I'm lucky enough to have got a job with the local town hall in the press office because I am a journalist by trade. Right. So I've managed to fill that void in my life. So yeah, it's a great place to live.
You've done multiple interviews as a journalist on Tenerife.
A few. I mean, generally, there's a couple of us who live on the island who are English-speaking print or broadcast journalists with experience. And it does happen that every time there is a major breaking story, whether it's about some poor tourist that has gone missing or a huge change in tourism laws, or Brexit, for instance, which affected so many British tourists or people who owned homes here, we get inundated with calls to do the interviews for British, Irish and American media because they know that we're the people who can deliver the story in the 5-minute chunks that they need it to be done in. It's kind of nice to be a spokesperson for the island too, because you'll find out in a minute I'll start sounding like the local tourist board if you ask me the right questions.
Visit Tenerife.
Yeah, well, I do love it here. I mean, sure. And the things that I love are probably the things that most tourists don't have on their wish list when they decide to come to Tenerife. Because I'm talking about architecture, the mountains, the hidden little bars that you will find when you go on a road trip, even religion and culture. Though I'm not very religious anymore, but the performative religion that is so much part of Spain is really, really interesting, and it feeds so much into the community. So if you decide to live here, you need to become part of that.
Yeah, it's interesting because that's what we know of Spain, also mainland Spain. A lot of traditions, a lot of bank holidays because some sort of religious festivity going on, and that's the same I expect here in Tenerife. But tell us a bit more about you. I mean, you said you live here for 25 years. I mean, what was your initial visit to this island and made you decide to stay?
I sometimes call myself an accidental immigrant. I'm from Dublin. I come from a great family, and I was working for the national radio station RTE. I was a news editor there for a couple of years, and I loved it. It was what I'd wanted to do all my life. But in my early 30s, I was also very tired, and somebody offered me a chance to buy an apartment here, a small apartment. All right. I'd been out on holidays once or twice, so I bought it, and then I took a year's leave of absence from RTE in my mid-30s, and within 6 weeks, I thought I'll come out, I'll work in a bar, I'll do something different. Within 6 weeks, I was editing the local newspaper. And I just, there's something, there's people who can come and live here for 6 years or 20 years and run a bar or work in the tourist industry, and they might never discover the link to the heart of Tenerife. But if you open your mind and you maybe start to learn the language a little bit and start straying beyond the tourist zones, there's something very special about this island. And I felt it drawing me in. I felt a pull. I felt that there was something, I mean, I'm not going to go all la-di-da about it, but I felt there was something that was filling a part of me that was missing in Ireland. And I don't know whether that's spiritual or cultural, and it's not just the weather, I know that. It's a sense of belonging, there's a sense of grounding that I don't always get in other places. Now that I live here, I love going home to Ireland as well, and I'm going to retire in a couple of years, and hopefully my dream is that I will financially be able to live between the two islands, because they're my two favourite places on earth. So let's see how that works out.
Yeah. And have you seen all the Canary Islands?
No, to my shame. Well, I could pretend that I'm very provincial, because there's 7 Canary Islands and they're divided into 2 provinces. So I don't know, I mean, it's politically more important and very important in terms of football. So Gran Canaria, Fuerteventura and Lanzarote are Las Palmas, the Gran Canaria. And then you have Tenerife, El Hierro, La Gomera and La Palma are Santa Cruz de Tenerife. And I visited those 4 islands. Right. So I've stayed within my province. I'm loyal to my province.
You're not allowed to go to other provinces.
No, I have been to Gran Canaria as well. So I'm just missing Fuerteventura and Lanzarote. Okay. And I will get there, it's no mistake. My favourite other island, though, has to be La Gomera. I adore it.
Yeah. Which we can see from here.
Which we can see from here. You need to drive to the other side. There's a hippie Germany feel to it. But then when I was in my university, that's where I used to escape to. Germany and fruit picking and au pairing and going to flea markets. That was my escape when I was in my 19, 20, 21 year section. Yeah, so I think, that'll fit into that part of me. And it's nice, it's laid back as well.
Yeah. And how would you describe Tenerife, say, in a few words?
Ooh. Rugged. Again, I think of the island as not just the 7 or 8% that is coastline.
Right.
So it's an Atlantic island off the west coast of Africa. It is rugged. It is fascinating. It has a history that surprises you. And I'm surprised that more people aren't over here telling the story of Tenerife more often. I mean, I do have a slightly creative streak in me, and I think the stories about the Aborigines that originally lived here before the conquistadores came. The story about Pedro de Ponte, who ran a sugar mill just around the corner from us, and a huge fort house with slaves. He had dealings with some of the major British pirates throughout the 17th and 18th centuries. I mean, there are so many stories to be told about these islands that I think there's always something to discover when you come on holidays to Tenerife. And what I'm hoping, and I see the tourism boards are beginning to explore that side of the island, and people are beginning to realise that there is much more to these islands than sun, sea and sand.
Right.
People need to just take a step in internally, away from the beach, even for one day, and they'll discover so much more.
Yeah, because of course most people are kids.
We got a school trip coming up, guys.
School trip. That's also what I love about Spain, is that they have these kind of uniforms. Yeah?
You don't have, well, my daughter went to school here, they had uniforms, but they also bring the kids out a lot. I mean, what you have is the local council here will interact very much with the local schools, so if there's anything going on, there'll be a day out for the kids, whether it's International Day Against Violence Against Women. Local school kids will be invited to write stories. They'll come up here to our plaza, which is, a unifying community centre in a way. Yeah. They'll be asked to write stories, do posters and take part in local celebrations or mark certain days. So that's really, really important. And I'd say that
makes it very communal.
Very much so, very much so. That's one of the secondary schools now. That's
look at it, they all lined up and on the stairs looking at us.
They're looking at us thinking, what are they doing and why are they speaking English? But, probably half of them do speak English. I mentioned to you before we started filming, the population of this municipality, people know Costa Adeje, but Adeje is the much bigger. So we've about 55,000 residents.
In Adeje?
In Adeje. We have over 2 million tourists a year. But of those 55,000, over half of them are non-Spanish. So we have and we have 120 different nationalities registered as living here, and a lot of people don't even register. So we have a hugely international population here,
Right.
with very little tension, very little. I mean, all the kids go to school together. There's a mosque church down the road. There's a Baha'i church in another part of Adeje. We have a big John Cheng Buddhist temple down in Playa Paraíso. We have a Russian Orthodox church that shares a space with a Catholic Orthodox church in my village. So everybody gets on. I mean, they mightn't mix and mix and mix, but there's it's a lot more than tolerance. There's, in Spanish, we call it convivencia, living together.
Living together.
I would think of it more as social harmony.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Convivencia.
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 And there's even a department for it here in Adeje. So and social cohesion and convivencia. So that's very important to the local council, because there are so many different.
Yeah.
Different.
That's what you experience as well with your daughter, right?
Yeah, yeah.
She was born here?
She's Canarian.
She's Canarian.
Yeah. Her dad was Catalan. Well, he still is. Her dad is Catalan. Mother's Irish.
We don't go into that, Ali. No.
Well, it's okay.
Yeah,
So she identifies as, Irish Catalan, but fiercely Canarian. So when she speaks English, she has a very good Dublin accent, and when she speaks Spanish, she is Canarian, 100%, and it's a lovely mix. And she's fiercely proud of these islands.
Fiercely Canarian.
Yeah. If being Canarian, and I've discovered it through her as much as anything. I mean, I don't know how it is in the Netherlands, but it's like being from the province that everybody looks down on if they come from the rest of Spain.
Right.
So
That's a bit of the reputation the Canary Islands have.
Yeah, I mean, when you go to the peninsula, the Spanish peninsula, they'll kind of get, not so much to me because I'm a foreigner living in Spain, and the fact that I speak Spanish, they'll kind of give me a pass. But Brie has said she comes back sometimes and there'll be a slight sneer in people's voice saying, "Oh, you're the cousin from the Canaries." Almost like I remember when I first went to the States from Ireland, people would say, "Do you have electricity in Ireland?" And you kind of think, no, we flew here on the back of an eagle. But people were genuinely asking me this in the 80s when I was studying there, like, "And do you have cars and refrigerators?" And I'm kind of going, "You people, really?" So there'd be that kind of... So she is fiercely Canarian, fiercely proud of her island status and heritage. And, she would say, "I'm not Spanish, I'm Canarian," and defends it to the hilt. So, and it's a good combo, Ireland, Catalan, Canarian, It seems to be working in her favour so far.
And she also is fiercely committed on staying on the island.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, but that doesn't mean she's leaving forever. I'll tell you what I've noticed, because she has a lot of friends who are similarly, from different cultures, a mixed culture. Friends who are maybe British Spanish, British Canarian, African Canarian, Egyptian. The kids who are her generation, she's 20, who went to school here today, as compared to the previous generation of Canarians, who probably, many of them left formal education because the tourism boom happened in the 70s. So they never graduated, they never got a certificate from their high school, and they certainly probably didn't go to third level education. A lot of them here are, because they see this as an excellent starting point. From the Canary Islands, you can fly directly to the United States, you can fly to Asia, you can fly to Europe. It's a 4-hour flight to pretty much most places you want to be in. You have excellent broadband and internet connections, so you can be anywhere you need to be quickly. She's done auditions to go to drama school in the UK from here and got accepted to all of them. So they see it as a place to come home to, as their base, but it's a base that they can leap elsewhere from. But I think they'll always come back because they'll always be Canarian. So they won't stay here forever because they don't need to. And they're not restricted to it either. They're a huge bilingual cohort now of kids coming out of here who speak at least 2, if not 3 languages. We have a big Russian community, we have a big Belgian French community, so they're probably speaking Russian, German and Spanish, or English. I mean, Brianna will speak a little bit of German as well. So they are a very I mean, she's never had a problem finding a job when she goes abroad because of her skills and her language skills.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of her generation find the same. They've no fear of leaving because they know they can always come back. And because their parents are international,
Almost like the Canary Islands are like an international dependence of Spain.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. And not just Spain, of Europe,
Yeah.
because there is now, and it's only beginning to show through now, I think, because you have the generation who are now finishing high school, finishing university. And probably because they already have maybe one internet parent from another country, they have family in another country, and they've been used to traveling since they were young to go home at Christmas, go home in the summer.
Yeah.
So getting on a plane and going somewhere else and being in a different culture is also as common to them as speaking a second language. And I think that's a real plus.
Yeah. I can imagine.
I hope so, anyway. Because she's, the bank of mothers running out, so she needs to do it all herself. No, I'm joking.
So she is spreading her wings.
Yeah, she studied, she did a BTEC, so it was like a high school diploma in Brighton.
Okay.
She left here at the age of 16, and then she did a year in theatre school in Dublin. She came back and she just decided to take a break and work here for a year, and she's now returning to Dublin in May. And she's kind of deciding what her next step will be, but for her, Dublin offers a lot more possibilities in terms of, vocational training, courses, professional training. Here there are that, but it's very much in the area of tourism, gastronomy, so tourism-related industries. Whereas if you want to do something that is beyond that, the opportunities and the choice isn't as great at all. So if you're going to be in Dublin, and she's got an Irish passport, so she can also work in the UK or study in the UK, that's where she needs to be for now.
Yeah.
She's not going to go to the States, even though it would have been on her bucket list a while ago. Right now, she doesn't think it's a place she wants to go.
Yeah. Talk about smart moves.
Yeah. She mightn't be very political, but she knows exactly what's going on in the world.
Yeah, good.
How would you say Tenerife has changed from like 25 years ago to what it is today?
The population has evolved, as I've said. I've also noticed a very big change in, say, in the political. I'm looking into space because I'm trying to think how to say. In the political aspirations and projects that are being made, because the council here, when we were sitting, the town hall is 2 buildings down.
Yeah.
We have a socialist mayor who has been the mayor for nearly 30 years. But he has changed this town enormously because
30 years.
He's 30.
Wow.
Yeah, but he's been elected. He's won election year after year after year, because he's very good at what he does. He has changed the town. He has worked. I mean, it's one of the wealthiest towns in the Canary Islands because it has one of the highest tourist turnovers. For instance, he has brought in training in tourism because he realised that if you want to have 5-star tourism instead of 3-star tourism, you need to have your tourist staff trained to the highest level, not just somebody who's come out of school and can serve a beer.
Yeah.
He is also, and the council have worked a lot with private industry, so they look at partnerships to develop areas, not just along the tourist area, but up here too, in the towns, to make the towns more accessible and more integrated. So the projects would include building better roads so that people who are going to visit the tourist part of the town will also come up and explore the old town. And that kind of investment has paid off because the end game is that the wealth that is generated by tourism goes back into the people who are working in tourism, not just into the pockets of the hotel owners, but that there is a public benefit to local communities. And that the people who are, I mean, one of the things the council runs is there's a huge training zone. So there's a tourism development zone where they run training courses for people who have been long-term unemployed, who are living in Adeje, and it will train them to get a professional certificate so that they will be able to work in the tourism sector, in the building sector, in the beauty sector. But that's a free training course and it gives them professional certificates. And, the first choice will go to people who are registered as resident in Adeje. So all of that combines to kind of like the council have seen that there is a growing and changing population. I mean, we have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the Canary Islands because of this training for employment that's going on the whole time. And the architecture is
In
also
tourism.
in not just in tourism. I
Okay.
mean that this training centre, while it's a tourism development centre, it will also train. You'll have training in lifeguards, training for people who are working on boats,
Drivers.
drivers, people who are working in the restaurant sector, obviously. And that will be, you'll have hotels working alongside the council because they will have job placements. So you have that kind of partnership that's really, really important. If you want, you can't just train someone and say, right, go off and find your own job placement. You need the hotel sector to say, what we're going to need in the next 3 years are chefs or are people who are trained to, I don't know, deliver. We need spa services. We need so there's that kind of need and fulfilling need and training to fulfill need, and that's a really important kind of partnership that is working very well.
But also not just seasonal workers, right?
No, because well, again, the plus of the Canary Islands is that tourism is 12 months a year.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the idea of seasonal work doesn't really exist here. I've noticed a change in that, and that's a global warming thing as well, I think. But certainly when I first moved here, there would be fallow months from after Christmas, so February, March, depending on when Easter was, you could have very little tourism here. And then between September through to Christmas, again, it would dip. But now you have a lot of people who come and stay for 3 or 4 months of the year, as long as they're not British, because they can't. They can only stay for 90 days in every 180 because of Brexit. But we have a lot of non-British, we call them swallows because they're retired tourists. I mean, they call themselves swallows as well.
Yeah.
But they come here from October through to March.
Yeah. Yeah.
And most of them own properties or they rent properties and they spend the winter months here.
Right.
And they get involved. And I mean, again, I haven't even mentioned my own personal job. The mayor hired me about 12 years ago because we talked about the fact that a town like Adeje needs to have its information available in 2 languages.
Nice.
So, I mean, I was a journalist by trade anyway, but I now have set up a Facebook page. So there's an official Facebook page which mirrors exactly the Spanish council Facebook page. I think of about 5,000 followers. There's an English language blog which will publish every press release that goes out in Spanish that is of any relevance to local residents and long-term tourists. And we have Instagram and we have Twitter, all in English. Beautiful. And I also will operate, if questions come in, I'll answer them. So people can contact me directly to ask for help, whether it's registering for the Padrón, which is the resident register, or what is coming up really, really soon. I don't know when we're going to be publishing this, but Easter's coming up very soon. And one of the huge events for Adeje now is their Good Friday performance, which is a 2-hour live performance that's now filmed and goes out live on regional and national television.
Yeah.
And it involves, 350 actors, and most of them are local residents who can register to take part. They play the People of Jerusalem. They play the court in front of Sandarin. And there's 1 or 2 professional actors who come and generally do this for free. And it ends here in the Plaza de España. Right,
Because that's where we're at now. Nobody
we're in the
knows.
Plaza de España, which is an award-winning plaza. And just to the right of where you're watching, there's a built-in stage, and 3 huge crucifixes will be erected there, and the crucifixion takes place there against the backdrop of the Barranco del Infierno, and it is this whole plaza will have 2,000 or 3,000 people crammed in to watch the final moments of La Pasión, which is the Good Friday
the
Passion.
Passion,
And it is really important because it's religion, but towns like Adeje have managed, and I mentioned this before, I think, to make religion to make celebration of religious events open, performative, and also tourism attractions.
Yeah.
Because you'll have people who book their holidays and make sure they get up to Adeje. People will be asking me for about a month beforehand, what date is Good Friday? What time do we need to be up in the town? Where can we park? Because all the streets are closed. So the pavements will be roped off and people will move and follow the action. It starts at the bottom of the main street with the Last Supper. There's a series of stages built all the way up. Garden of Gethsemane as well. Everybody who knows if people know the story of the last days of Christ will understand the significance of things like the Garden of Gethsemane. It's musical. We have local musicians and singers who will also sing original songs as they move up to the path. And it is very, very well done. And it's, it brings... The first time I brought my daughter to it, she only wanted to go as far as the bit where Jesus was arrested, and then it was too much for her, and she got too upset, and we had to go home. But it's well done, and it's
so much drama into it.
So much drama, but the bottom of the street, you have a farmyard, you've got goats, you have people making bread, you have people making pottery, all dressed as people of Jerusalem, and we have our own photographers because you're not allowed to bring press photographers into the staging area, so even the photographers have to wear the local costume of the time to give it that level of authenticity. But that kind of use of street and space and place brings people up, and people then get used to coming to this main street on the 5th of January, which is the Eve of the Kings, the Three Kings, which is so important here. Yeah. And there will be a huge parade up the main street. Again, using this space, the Three Kings will then sit here and meet all the kids. But adults from all over the world who live in Adeje want to know which bars they can reserve their tables in because they want to be part of the celebration.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, and they still mightn't be speaking enough Spanish to join a Zumba class with the over 50s or go and, well, there are those, There's so many different courses going on for so many different levels for all ages. But they start to learn a little bit about what the culture of the place is, and they start to realise why it's special.
Yeah, and then it's also, again, we draw back to community. This is the first church bell, by the way, gonging in this podcast channel.
Oh,
so
wow, first.
That's very nice. 3 times now.
Yeah, well then don't denounce anybody. You're not supposed to do that after the bell rings 3 times. That's very Good Friday-ish.
Yeah, but it somehow fitted the topic. Yeah. But I wanted to say is that, of course, and then religion becoming important also because it's that kind of community feel to it.
Yeah, it has, and
it brings people together.
It brings people together, and obviously, behind the camera, there's a 16th century church, the Santa Ursula Church, and that is a Catholic church. So that's where you have Catholic masses, but we have a Lustral Año this year. Every 5 years, the Virgen de la Encarnación, who is one of the patron saints, will be carried around all the small towns of Adeje, and that happens in September. And for the main event, you will generally get the representatives of all the main religions of the people of the town invited to take part in any of the big public celebrations, and they are happy to do that. So we are on show while we are with the Virgin of la Encarnación, who is a Spanish Catholic Virgin statue. Every single religion is asked to be there, is welcomed there. Yeah. We want them there because this is a community event for everybody. Yeah. And if you're Catholic, it might have special significance for you. But if you're Muslim, if you're Baha'i, if you're Church of England, if you're, Lutheran, it's also your event. And the more people who come along, the more it is made into a community event, a social harmony event. And that's
shared experience.
Shared experience, there you go, yeah. And it's another reason I like living here. I find, for instance, I'll give you a quick example. I watched the kind of reaction to boat people arriving into the shores of the UK from France. And I understand why people get annoyed and I understand why people get upset. There are more people coming on boats to the Canary Islands from the west coast of Africa nearly every year than go to England. And there is no public outcry. People are worried. We have 6,000 underage kids, and we were fighting with the government in the mainland because we didn't have the facilities to look after that many underage undocumented minors. But nobody is saying close down the borders, stop them leaving. Because people, while they feel, God, do we have enough places to mind them, to look after them in our hospitals? Nobody's saying they can't go to our schools. Nobody is saying there's too many people. Nobody is saying send them back. Because I feel certainly where I live is a very international community. And it's another thing I really like about it. I feel safer here than I unfortunately still do in many places in bigger Western democracies.
Yeah, I mean that's merely my perception, but that's also a bit of the always the difference between a more like individualistic mindset versus a collective mindset, right?
And I mean, we could have talk for hours about how social media in recent days and the internet, and we've seen it in Ireland as well, to my sadness, that there are people who now are standing up and saying, get the immigrants out. And it takes one or two individuals to kind of light a fuse and social media explodes and people are believing things. And you're right. And it is an individual who is generally behind it and trying to manipulate as many people as possible. But I haven't seen that here. And I don't hope I never will see it here. Of course, there are people who talk about immigrants, but you will find, and you know, a lot of, say, English tourists have asked me, is it still safe to come here? Because there have been protests about the model of tourism, not just in the Canary Islands, but in Spain. And that is definitely an issue.
Yeah.
So they're more concerned about
Housing, affordable housing.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's a law that's coming into force in Spain this month, which will limit the amount of short-term letting per complex in a residence area. So, you know, they're beginning now. I mean, our council have looked for special status to be allowed control, regulation, new builds, because quite often you have so many different levels of government in Spain.
Yeah.
But if a company decides to get a license to build, it might be initially given to them by the island government, but the council here wants to be able to actually intervene and regulate the amount of short-term and long-term residential accommodation that can be built, because we need more long-term building for people who live here.
Yeah.
And it's that simple. Nobody that I know, because most of us work in some way in the tourism industry. Even what I do is because there are non-Spanish people here. No one says we don't want tourists, but what they say is we don't want industries to solely gear their building and prices and food and restaurants towards tourists.
Yeah.
Residents need to be able to live properly as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I did an interview last year around this time in Costa Blanca in Spain, and actually the episode we talked briefly on, you know, people who retired and so on. Sometimes our videos go viral, but this one for negative reasons, because of, you know, just local Spanish residents saying "Guiris, go back home," you know, because there's too much of a gap between them and their chances and opportunity to get housing. Then
And the wages are, I mean, the
And
wage
the wages,
differences are huge.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I mean,
And
we
then
like our Guiris.
Yeah.
We also have a name for Spanish, for the Godos.
Godos.
And they're the Spanish. And I mean, people, but I mean, it is. I mean,
So it's a good thing that the governments are finally taking action to.
Yeah, and a lot of people will say not soon enough, and many people will say it's not enough at all. I mean, I know 2 days ago, the mayor from here, Jose Miguel Rodriguez Fraga, and the regional housing minister were up in Armanimi, which is near where I live, just kind of confirming that they are handing over a plot of land where they're going to build 55 residences, all for residents. So this will be, they're building homes for residents. And that's very specific. So they will be built at a rate that residents can afford. And that has to be done.
Yeah.
And I mean, to me, that's part of the bigger model of sustainable tourism, because tourism is not sustainable if the people who are working and making the sector viable can't afford to live in the actual location.
Yeah.
Because we have huge traffic problems in the islands, and one of the reasons is that people have to commute so much to and from work.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's none of these things are isolated.
Because also they don't live where they work.
They don't live where they work because they can't afford to. So I mean, tourism exploded in the islands, I think. I mean, post-Franco, Spain had this boom, you know, and Franco died at 75. And tourism kind of took off pretty much, I think, around the same time there. So the regulations, I don't think there was any coordinated effort to regulate tourism for years and years and years and years because it was boom time. There was money coming in.
Yeah.
But now the road structure isn't sufficient, I think, to deal with the amount of cars. There's maybe too many cars in the island. There's twice as many cars as residents or something. So you have work-life balance, where to live. If I can't live where I work, I have to drive. That contributes to traffic jams. That contributes to ozone layer. And it's all interconnected.
Yeah.
So it needs careful and long-term planning to actually sort it out. There is no quick fix solution.
Yeah.
But I think that they're on the right path.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that much about mobility here, but I mean, I was impressed by what I saw of the infrastructure, you know, how squares or playgrounds are designed and streets are nicely done. I mean, it's well taken care of.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, you said before, nearly every town in Spain has a Plaza de España, and they do. Yeah, because the square is still the central focal point of any town.
Yeah.
I mean, even I live in a place called Adeje, which is down the coast, and we have a square. We have a plaza. Well, it's a plaza. And there's a playground there. And there's another small square near behind I live, which also has a playground. Because if you go to the square, you're going with your kids and you're probably maybe going with your parents. So you need somewhere to sit and somewhere for the kids to play. And there needs to be shade and ideally somewhere for your dog to go and do his business as long as you pick it up. But the plaza's for everybody.
Yeah.
And, you know, I can't imagine a Spanish small town, even the tiniest town, they'll probably have a church and there'll be a square nearby.
Yeah.
Because I suppose in the olden days you came out of the church and you sat around and discussed the sermon. You know, and if it was a Sunday morning, you were probably discussed who was out with who the night before. Yeah. That's what we all did after Mass when I was a kid.
Or you have a podcast interview. So this is my first time on a bench on a Plaza España.
Well, you're very welcome. First bells, first stone bench, first award-winning Plaza de España. Tick, tick, tick.
Award-winning, sorry.
Award-winning. And this plaza, this used to be a tiny plaza. And again, part of the whole, let's build it for a more integrated and bigger and growing society. Menace is the name of the architectural firm who took it over, and they doubled the size of it. But they've also, it's very modern in structure. It's got that kind of angular look to it. You have LED lighting around a lot of it as well, which means that it lights up in different colours. You'll have blue, it'll be lit up in blue this weekend for autism. It lights up green on St. Patrick's Day. I wonder how that happened. Could it be with having an Irish person working in the press office? But pink for breast
credits.
Yeah, ta-ching, cha-ching. But, you know, it has an art and a history space in the tower, which is over there behind us. And it's got a built-in natural stage and an incredible backdrop. So he won awards. He won World Architectural Feature Awards back in 2010 for this. So, you know, it wasn't just thrown up. It was thought through.
So it's already been there for 15 years?
Yeah, it was completed in 2010.
I'll definitely add some shots in alongside this interview.
And I mean,
so people can enjoy along.
Yeah, and I mean, they'll see on the stage now, they've put up where the crucifixion is going to be there. The next event up there will be the crucifixion. There will also be religious parades coming down the Calle Grande, which is right beside us, every night next week. And, you know, they're big events. But it is the Good Friday one which draws the crowds.
Yeah, next time I come to Tenerife around Easter and Good Friday. Huh?
Yeah, you're going to miss it just by 2 weeks.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's good this year because it's later. I mean, Easter is such a changeable feast, but the weather, hopefully, fingers crossed, the weather will be lovely. Yeah. I think the event has never been cancelled. I could be wrong. Somebody will ping you and say, yes, I remember in 1982. But it's people are in rehearsal every night now along the main street because the 300 who take part, they're all I know my neighbour who's Italian, she's taken part for the first time. Wow. And you don't have to speak Spanish really, as long as you can follow directions. Right. And it is fun to be part of this huge event, you know?
Yeah. Well, and it sounds to be fun part of this community on this island, right?
Yeah, it is. And I know I do, like I started off by saying it has its pros and its cons. Everywhere has pros and cons. I mean, I can't think if there's a single place that is absolutely glorious to live. We'd all be there.
Yeah, what is a good place?
It is. Yeah.
What is a good place?
What is a good place?
Yeah.
I mean, these days, distance is always relevant, I think. I tell you what, if you have family, if you've all your family living with you, you can go where you like. If your family lives in another country, your sisters, your brothers, your mum, your dad, that's always going to be a draw. But I have daughter here, family in Dublin. She's got family in Barcelona. But then you think of that as a plus as well, because it means there's always a sofa you can sleep on.
Sure. And it seems you found people here that sound like family.
I have. And where I live, I have an extended family and we look after each other. None of us are related, but we've all come through. We're all kind of a mix of international communities and countries, and we're there for each other. I mean, I had a back operation a couple of years ago and I needed to go to the health centre every day for dressings. And there wasn't a single day that I didn't have somebody waiting to give me a lift there and bring me home. They just set up a WhatsApp group and that was it.
Cleo's taxi.
Yeah, but it was. And I mean, I was saying, I get a taxi home. No, I'll wait for you. And that's just the level of, care there is. Another woman, great woman called Blue, and every year she just, again, through a local networking, she says, right, I'm collecting for the orphanages again. And you text her and she says, right, you've got to buy a present for somebody who's 12. It's a girl. She likes jewellery or something. So you just buy whatever you like and usually you set a limit on it and you drop it down to her before the 12th of December. And it's just, people just say, okay, I can do that. And if you can't, you can't. But generally, nobody's asking you to do too much. And it's a tit for tat. We all drop each other to the airport. We're there for each other. I mean, I know when my daughter goes back to Dublin soon, without thinking about it, there'll be people just text me saying, come on, let's go for coffee. Or the first couple of days, if I'm feeling just a little bit too lonely. And the cat's giving me grief. I'll be a childless cat lady. Watch out.
Oh, Lord.
Cleo, we've come to the end of this podcast interview.
You thought we'd run out of things to talk about. I thought we'd run out of things to talk about. This is just part one.
That sounds like an invitation for a part two.
You never know.
Next time around.
You never know. Maybe in Dublin next time.
Sure. I've never been.
Well, we could talk about that. But
Yeah.
I couldn't wax lyrical about Dublin anymore like I can about. But I could introduce you to one of my sisters. She could do it.
Sure.
There you go.
Sure. I mean, this Irish community has brought me to you. Like maybe it's something like a torch you pass on. I don't know.
It's not just that blood is thicker than water. We all know each. Well, especially here in Tenerife.
Yeah.
Even you get a call from somebody and their surname is O'Flaherty. You pick up the phone, even if you don't know them, and you speak to them like, how are you? I haven't seen you for ages. I mean, I have met Fergal, by the way. Fergal, hi. But
Johanna, thanks for the hookup.
Johanna, lovely to talk to you on the phone. Hope to meet you soon. But yeah, I mean, there's a sense that if you're Irish and living abroad, you mightn't want to go to every single St. Patrick's Day event there was, but it's like if someone is in need. If somebody phones you up, you think, okay, they're phoning me for a reason, and if I can help, I'll help.
Yeah. Amazing.
I mean, I had a great time listening to you first resident, local here in Tenerife. And I'm inspired by, the community vibes. And what was that sentence in Spanish again?
Convivencia.
Convivencia. I think I'm going to write that down and live by it.
I'll text you I'll text you the head of the department or the name of the department because it basically means social cohesion and coexistence, which is, there's a whole department dedicated to it.
I mean, people use those words in governments, even back home, but convivencia sounds more motivating.
It's a lovely word, isn't it?
It's like it's actionable. It sounds like a slogan of life,
Yeah, it sounds like it's a word that has movement to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Energy.
And social cohesion, the word itself not. So
no, social cohesion it's too much of a mouthful.
Like, what?
Yeah, convivencia is much better.
Yeah.
It's much better. It works on a t-shirt, I'm sure. Back of a jacket.
Hey, t-shirt idea. T-shirt idea. Nice.
Nubs,
Tourist merchandise. Love it.
Make Adeje live together again. No, stop.
Don't go there. Thank you, Cleo. And shake your hand.
You're welcome. It's been a real pleasure. I've enjoyed every minute of it.
And I do feel doing these interviews in this kind of sunshine and in shorts is I think it's the way forward.
I ain't taking off my jeans. It's still too cold for me. I'm Canarian now. Or I'm Adeje is what I am. Adeje.
Adeje.
So from Adeje, I'm saying thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like our channels. It would mean the world. And yeah, I think this is going to be episode 50, which is quite a milestone.
Good.
Already.
Yeah.
Almost.
We're on a big zero number. That's good. I feel privileged.
Yeah. And I'll make sure it's number 50.
Okay, yeah. You better.
Thanks everyone watching from Tenerife, and wishing you all a fab day.
Yeah. Hasta luego.
Ciao.